Okay, so 3 separate podcasts that I listened to converged on one topic in the same week a couple weeks ago. And after the third discussion around like managing your emotions, and more specifically the phrase that you can't think your way out of your emotions, and like the difference between like thinking about your feelings and feeling your feelings and managing your feelings, something clicked in my brain, made a noise, I heard it, and life has changed forever. So first of all, we, as in my past and present self, listened to the Enneagram episodes of We Can Do Hard Things, Lennon and Abby's podcast, and I am an Enneagram 4, which means I am all about feelings. And the advice that was given for 4s was that you have to do something about your feeling before you talk about it or think about it. You have to like do something physically with your body. So what they were saying was that before you try to verbalize whatever it is that you're feeling, or even journal about how you're feeling, you need to stop and like go for a walk or do something with your body first. And I was like, what? Because the very first thing that I do when I start to get emotional or just like overwhelmed or anxious or whatever is grab my journal. So I was like, how am I doing this wrong? And then Andrew Huberman, Maya Bialik, and Rich Roll all talked about similar things on their podcasts, and they were all talking about how you can't think your way out of a feeling. And that's like a phrase that we've all heard, you know, but it's also one of those ones that like doesn't really make sense to you until it makes sense. So I've heard that plenty of times before, but it just like didn't enter my noggin until this past week. But in the past, when I've heard that phrase, I've always just kind of been like, okay, what does that mean though? Even when people just say like you can't, it's hard to even understand like what it means when you're like intellectualizing your feelings. Like it's still hard to be like, okay, but what does that actually look like in practice in terms of like habits and things, you know what I mean? And I've journaled pretty regularly for like 8 or 9 years at this point, and a few times I have gone back and read my old journals, and it's been high-key sickening to see that a lot of the like thought patterns that I am still having and still writing down in my journal have been written down in my journal, like every single journal that I've ever had. And that's not to say that there wasn't like growth from one journal to the next, but there were definitely thought patterns that I hadn't been able to shake fully in the last decade that I've been journaling. But in the last couple of weeks, I started to try to like integrate this advice into my daily life. So whatever happens in the world, I get overwhelmed, upset, stressed, anxious, whatever. And instead of grabbing my journal, I go for a walk, or I take out the trash and I run up and down the stairs twice. And only after I did that did I grab my journal. And oh my God, the experience of journaling was so different. Because then it was like you were revisiting whatever emotional thing you had going on that you were thinking about it while you were walking or taking out the trash or whatever. But after you've like moved the emotion through your body even a little bit, when you sit down to journal, you're just like more able to access the part of your brain that's like older or more mature or just like more up to date with like what you know now that you didn't used to, where the emotional part of your brain is much more like 4-year-old you. So it just allows you to like step out of the emotion, and that like older, like more mature part of your brain is then able to guide your journaling in a more growth oriented direction instead of you just rewriting the same thoughts that you've been having since you were 15. So you can like stop further entrenching the neural pathways that were like rather negative, because you can access that other part of your brain in your journaling or when you're trying to verbalize whatever you're feeling, so then you can reach a resolution sooner. And in the past, when I would immediately grab my journal, it would turn into a whole thing. It would be like a 3-day affair of me like holding on to like whatever is going on, and then my thoughts would just loop for days. And I thought that was normal. Like I thought that was just me processing the emotion. But now, I think by going into my thoughts about the emotion right away, I was actually just clinging onto the emotion, which I am. With emotions, I am a stage 5 clinger, okay? Like, I can hold on to an emotion forever. But now, I can just go for a little walkie walk, come back, and journal, and like reach a solution or a resolution for whatever was going on. So, lesson learned. Life changed, lesson shared, that's all.